Hello, and welcome to another Toon Network match report with me, Adam. It's finished Burnley 1, Newcastle United 0 at Turf Moor. It was always going to be quite a tight game. It was looking to be a war of attrition until the last quarter of the game, and then Burnley broke the deadlock, and there didn't seem to be enough time for us to come back into it, or enough quality, I think, in the final third to save the points. But let's start from the start anyway. Going into the game, two of Burnley's most deadly strikers in Sam Vokes and Chris Wood, of course, who scored against us last season at St James's Park for Leeds. They were both injured, not fit enough to start. Mikel Merino was omitted from the starting lineup as well. Obviously, he was omitted from the whole squad, so arguably he's been injured somehow in the last day or so, which probably affected Rafa Benitez's plans. Diarmi started in his place again, but other than that, the team was largely unchanged. Burnley started the better of the sides. I don't think there was much to shout about in the first half in terms of chances from either of us, but we were probably frustrated by Burnley in the first half more than they were frustrated by us. We struggled to get a hold of the ball. We struggled to create any chances. It seems to be the case of late with first halves that we're very, very cautious. We like to feel out opponents. Rafa Benitez certainly likes to. And away from home, we were always going to set up, and we were really tight and we were really compact. But it's really telling. Gary Neville mentioned at half time that in the first half, only one striker from either side had touched the ball in the opposition box, and that was Ashley Barnes in our box. Hosselu didn't have a touch in the Newcastle half. We managed two chances in the first half. There's a shot that was a kind of snapshot blazed over by Christian Atsu, and then Shelvey had a shot on target with the outside of his boot, which was sort of down the throat of Nick Pope. But apart from that, it was kind of as you would expect. Again, a war of attrition in the first half. Very few chances from either side. Very few going on in each of the final thirds. Both teams were, I guess, attempting to make progress and attempting to create chances, but this has been a key issue for Newcastle. So even when we beat Crystal Palace last week, that we didn't create that many chances, and I think this has been an issue, and maybe we missed Merino today in terms of someone who he has great vision and passing, and he can try and unlock defences, but I think we're just maybe struggling with quality, and there's only so much quality that we have in the squad at the time, this moment in time of the season. In January, depending on what happens with takeover or not, or we will likely have something to spend in terms of bringing in recruits, but we definitely need to add depth to this squad, because even when Gale came on later in the match, I don't think he offered much. But anyway, in the second half, I think the first 10 minutes of that second half, we were in control, I think, for the first time properly in the match. We had a great chance where Hosselu laid it off. I think it was from a throw-in. Perez tried to curl one at the far post, but was well saved by Pope. But I mean, this kind of continued this, as Gary Neville mentioned, what was quite an admirable defensive display by both sides in the first half, given that one touch full stop by any strikers in the first half. So it was a commendable defensive performance by both sides. But I think from a Newcastle perspective, in the second half, this is exactly how we needed to come out. Start to put them on the back foot, start being more assertive, and create chances and get shots on target. And Hosselu looked up for it, and Shortly after that Perez shot, he he got an eye-watering challenge from the goalkeeper after he closed the goalkeeper down. You'll remember Perez did something similar to Fraser Forster in the Southampton match, and that seemed to make him a bit shaky. But this, this being able to close him down in this instance didn't really have that effect on Pope, who went on to make a couple of really important saves for Burnley. After that, I think Burnley got their composure back, they got their confidence back, and they sort of really controlled the game up until the goal, which came in about the 74th, 75th minute. I felt that we were, before that goal, before I talked about the goal, we had lost possession a couple of times in really dangerous areas. I remember Diarmi did so when we were on the counter-attack, and he was probably the most offensively positioned midfielder, so most of our players were ahead of him. And there was an incident on the right wing where Yedlin tried to come away with the ball, but he was kind of hounded out by two of their players, their left back and Brady, I think it was. So there was a couple of warning signs there that we were losing possession in dangerous areas, and for me that's exactly how this goal came about. We tried to play out a defence. Perez didn't show the strength that maybe Joselu might have. Perez is obviously a lot more of a lightweight. He doesn't have that physicality that, say, Marino has, or maybe even a Hayden, even a Shelby. And he was easily barged over. It wasn't a free kick. It was just a strong challenge. He was crowded out, and whether it was the ball to him wasn't great and he didn't have much to work with, or I think Perez needs to be coming to the ball and passing back. I don't think he should be waiting for the ball to come to him when he's crowded around, and I think he needs to be showing more strength there. And that was a real issue. That's a real issue with Perez's, and there's nothing much we can do about it because his physique is how it is. And from that, Burnley just took the impetus, and it was a kind of game of chess before that, but once Perez lost the ball and they had so many men forward, they went for it. They took a risk. They drove at our defence. So I think it was Goodmanson on the right hand side. He fed Barnes. He fed Cork, who had a shot. Elliott, I thought, did nothing wrong. I thought he palmed it strongly to the side, which is exactly where it should be going. It's exactly where it should. Maybe could it have gone out for a corner and we could have regrouped. But I think his primary objective there is to A, save the ball, B, beat it wide away from players, and it was. But then they then crossed it, and I think Yedlin's very guilty of ball watching here, because it beat the goalkeeper. It wasn't a very high cross, but it was just maybe about 8 feet, 7 feet in the air, that just zipped over all the heads of our defenders, and Jeff Hendrick was absolutely in acres at the back post. He should never be given that much space. That's Yedlin's man, and I think that's an error from him. I think it's an error from Perez, and I just think our defence couldn't react quickly enough to that second ball once Elliott had beat it away. So that was really, really, really disappointing. I thought they didn't really have that many clear-cut chances up until that point, and they capitalised when it mattered. They've sort of done what Newcastle have done in recent times when they have won in recent games, where we've been very economical and efficient with not many chances. They've done the same there, and we've paid. And they took a risk. They went all at us. They were assertive, and they came away with a goal. And I think from that point, given how few chances we actually created in the game, I think at that point you were kind of wondering where a goal was going to come from. So I thought players like Diarmi. I was surprised Hayden hadn't started in Marino's absence. He doesn't often impress me, Diarmi, and I think he showed some physicality today. I think that's why he was brought in ahead of Hayden. I think he's a stronger unit, but he just didn't have much composure on the ball, and he's prone to making errors. I think he's kind of I don't think he's too much in terms of that first touch and technique, I don't think he's too much different to Sissoko, to be honest. He's that kind of player, you kind of don't trust him when he's on the ball, that he's got a bit of guile about him. And I think we've really missed Merino in that centre, who's a really hard-working midfielder. I think he's made more tackles than N'Golo Kante this season. Mikel Merino, I think he's very high up the league there. So after that, and another player that I think had a few shaky moments was Lejeune. I think we need to keep playing him to get his confidence. I think he's still trying to settle in the team and in the country and in the club. But there's a few times where maybe instead of just getting rid, like Lascelles usually, if in doubt, he just hammers it, and sometimes he maybe needs a bit more composure, but at least he's clearing it and takes fewer risks. Whereas Lejeune, he's a ball-playing defender, so he likes to maybe bring it out, look for a strong pass ahead of him, look to the wings. He tried a few long-range passes as well. But I just think, you look at that Southampton game where he was largely good actually, but he made that one error. I think he was close to committing another error in this game as well. I think it's just something to keep an eye on, because Clark's done very little to be dropped. I do believe that. So, but the competition's healthy. I'm sure Lejeune can continue to develop. But after that goal, Burnley obviously sat back. They wanted to protect their lead. We then, again, it was maybe a little bit similar to the Brighton game. Sorry, the Huddersfield game. It was the Huddersfield away game where in the last 15 minutes we really took the game to them, and I don't think we quite had that urgency tonight. There wasn't that urgency there, but we did offer a few more shots. We probably had the majority of our shots in the last 15, 20. Yedlin burst forward from right back, fed in Hosselu on the edge of the box, and he struck a really well hit shot, but just went past the post. And I think Pope's beaten there if he tucks that in the post, inside the post. I think that's 1-1. I don't think the keeper's getting to that. So that was very unlucky. Gale came on, Jacob Murphy came on, and there was a long ball forward from Shelvey, I think, who Hosselu and Murphy were nearly latching onto it. And I think all in all, Shelvey was probably the one player in our side who was looking to try and make some magic happen. He's got the guile, the technique and the composure, which I think was lacking everywhere else in the squad. I think a lot of the other players panicked and kicked the ball out, and there wasn't much thought to it. It was just kind of working off instinct, and sometimes you just have to be composed, pass it around a bit, get comfortable with the ball, pass and move. But Shelvey, I thought, picked out a few really good passes. He had a really good drive in the shortly after that Hosselu shot as well, where we'd sort of a really good pass and move, a great counter attack where we'd almost seem to pass it one shot too many when it got cleared. Came out to Shelvey, who drove it, got a decent enough contact, but just it's going to be difficult scoring from outside the box from there. And then Burnley went forward again, and Barnes responded to a layoff on the edge of the box. He hit with his left foot across the face of goal, and Elliott again, very very strong save, very similar to the shot that led to the save that led to the goal. He beat it out right to his left with strong hands right out to the side. It was a correct technique from the goalkeeper, the save there, and they couldn't this time capitalise from it. But it kind of showed that the game was resorting to long range shots largely beyond the goal that they managed. That was probably just outside our 6-yard box. So we then went up the other end again. It was a bit end to end. It was from Hayden this time, and Pope did the same thing. He beat it away. And then I think that was the corner where Elliott came forward. The ball came back out to Shelvey on the wing, who whipped a really good ball in. Manquillo did a sort of backward looped header. It went over, and I think that was the game dead at that point. So it was kind of think it was just too little too late, and I don't think we had the urgency, and I feel like we need to be, I know we're playing away from home, and just a couple of errors led to their goal, but I think that could have very easily been a 0-0. I just wanted to see a bit more from us in the final third, and I think buying some creativity or a striker in January is an absolute must. I know that we're probably looking at left backs and goalkeepers, but to be honest, our defence is relatively solid. It really is. I'm looking at goals scored here, and away from home, we've only scored 4 goals away from home all season. We've conceded this. We've conceded the same amount. 5 now after this Burnley goal. So we're struggling to create chances anyway, even at home, most games. But certainly away from home, this was always going to be a low-scoring game. And Burnley, I think that looking at the stats, I think they've certainly deserved the win. They managed 12 shots with 5 on target. And we only had 4 on target. So, sorry, it was only 9 in 3. So we've had 3 shots on target, and 2 of those are from Shelvey, and it's just, and 1 from Hayden, obviously. So these shots are coming from midfielders, and not even players who are either in these shots aren't coming from our 4 most attacking players. So I think there's a real issue there, and it's something we're definitely going to have to work on. I know we've been doing a lot of work defensively on the training ground, and that's showing. And it's another game that we've lost that it's only been by 1 goal. It's our 3rd 1-0 defeat away from home. All games where that could have gone either way, really. That were very, very tight, but we've just been on the wrong side of the result tonight. But I would say that Burnley did edge it tonight. I think they just looked a bit more dangerous. They were more in control. Although, strangely enough, we managed 52.9% possession, so 53% possession. We just edged possession, which is very unusual for us even at home, to get the lion's share of possession. But I just think, I've got to say our man of the match there was Shelvey. I think he seemed to be the only one who was, in such a tight game like that, with Burnley set up very, very well defensively. Newcastle as well, but Burnley won this one and breached us, and credit to them for that. But I just think we needed a bit of magic, I think, to make something happen. And Shelvey was, I think, the only player on that pitch who looked like coming close to doing so. He had the guile, the confidence, and the just that extra bit of quality. And I think it's that kind of quality that we're lacking in the squad as a whole. Players, we used to be able to bring, love him or hate him, we used to be able to bring Ben Arthur on as a substitute, and as frustrating as he was and hated defending, but he could just produce a bit of magic out of absolutely nothing. He could take on a couple of long range shot, wins you the 3 points, gets you a last minute draw. That kind of player, we're missing that in our squad. I think just those, and there's only very few players that can actually turn a game like that, or carry a game, or just make that much of an impact that it changes the complexion, or turns a win into a draw into a win, or a defeat into a draw. So Shelvey was having to do that all on his own, and maybe we were missing Marino, his strength, his defensive qualities, but also his vision in the final third and making things happen. And he's a great conduit on a counter-attack between midfield and attack, looking for Atsu's pace, who again, it's another first half where Atsu's looked really dangerous and driving forward, but then he sort of disappears in the second half. And that's a couple of games that's happened now for Atsu. Murphy came on, didn't really have too much time to do much. His confidence was lacking a bit. He had a poor touch that went out for a throw in. Gale came on. There's nothing much more to it. Gale came on and didn't really offer us anything at all. So we're obviously lacking in quality. Let's not panic though. That leaves us still in ninth on 14 points after 10 games. You know, we'd have taken that all day long, I think. We are about a third of the way, a little over a third of the way of where we need to be by the end of the season, and there's just over a quarter gone. So I think we're in. If we continue at this ratio of games to points, we'll be fine. We'll be comfortable. We're probably looking to finish, you know, on those numbers. You know, maybe 12th, 13th or something like that, I reckon, in real terms. But a lot can change. January recruitment can change. Next game we've got Burnley obviously rise above us to 7th, and they're on 16 points, on level on points with Liverpool. But we've got Bournemouth next. Now, Bournemouth are sitting in the bottom half of the table. Sorry, they're sitting in the bottom half. They're basically propping up the league. They're second from bottom, sorry, is what I meant to say. And they're sitting in the relegation zone. They narrowly got beat off Chelsea at the weekend, 1-0. And something to be aware of is that their last away game, they actually beat Stoke 2-1. So maybe similar to Palace, who kind of came with a bit of rejuvenation. I think it'll be a slightly different proposition to the Bournemouth that started for the first few weeks of the season. I think they'll have maybe renewed hope from that last away win. They'll fancy themselves, and you know, they'll have seen that this performance tonight, and they'll see a very strong defensive unit in Newcastle, but they'll see that we can be breached if they drive at us and they ask questions of us, and they probably know that we might not create as many chances as we should be creating at home, because that's been an issue. But it's a completely different match. I don't think this 1-0 is going to dishearten too many fans. It's disappointing, obviously, but we haven't been turned over. Rafa Benitez teams do not get turned over. That's what we're learning. We have a good record at home. We're solid at St James's Park. I think we can win, and I think we need to be assertive. I think we certainly need to start taking a few more risks, especially at home. I'd like to see, if Marino's still out, I'd like to see Hayden start over Diarmi. I don't want Diarmi to be starting. I don't think he warranted enough from his performance tonight to remain in this team. I'd like to see Lejeune again, but if Lejeune is a bit shaky or doesn't feel settled, I think Clark needs to come in afterwards. Again, it depends. It depends how the game goes, but I think leading up to the game, trying to read, you know, people's opinions on social media, especially Twitter, I think we all would have been happy with a draw. I think we all would have taken a draw tonight. So I don't think too many people were actually expecting an easy ride against Burnley, and it's not what it was, and we were proved right, and it could have gone either way, but it's a 1-0 defeat. Defeats are going to happen. We're not going to... We're a newly promoted side we don't have the resources of a lot of squads. As much as we probably think Burnley are a bit, you know, not very glamorous squad, they're solid and they've had a couple of years of continuity in this top league. So that's the difference. And Sean Dyche is a really solid manager who's performing very well. Again, with a team bigger than the sum of its parts, because he's good tactically and defensively sound. So Bournemouth next. Let's put this defeat behind us. I think, as much as, you know, when it's not really painted a very pretty picture of us, and I think that's 12 Monday night football games that we've now not won, which is a damning statistic. Let's just not play on Monday. It's clearly a jinx for us. But back to St James's Park on Saturday, crowd roaring. We I do fancy us not to get beat. I think we'll at least draw. I think Bournemouth will be, you know, they've got Callum Wilson back. I think it might be a draw at the weekend. I'd love to see us win, but I just think we need a few more chances created to get that, you know, the chance of scoring up, because I don't think at the minute, in terms of expected goals, we're not doing enough to deserve scoring more. And I think if you looked at the statistics from tonight, you look at this and you saw the score was 1-0 to somebody, you'd say that Burnley deserved it every time, based on those numbers and the way they controlled the game, certainly. So we'll put it behind us. How are the lads? We'll be optimistic for Saturday, and we'll go on. Thanks very much for watching Match Report. It's not the result anybody wanted, but we haven't been turned over, but for a couple of little errors, I think we would have ground out a 0-0, which would have been a decent result. Anyway, I've been Adam. On to the next one. We'll get your comments in below. Subscribe to us on YouTube, iTunes and SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. I've been Adam of the Two Network. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.